U.S. President Donald Trump has followed through on a threat to declare a national emergency. Trump has been at loggerheads with the opposition Democrats over funding for a wall along the border with Mexico. Congress reached an agreement this week for border security funding, but which fell far short of what the U.S. president wants. To give us more details on this, we're joined by our U.S. correspondent, Simon Marks. Simon, in Donald Trump's calculations, how will this move give him, or hopefully give him, the money that he wants for the wall?
Well, I mean, theoretically, it would give him the money that he wants for the wall, because he can divert money from other projects to the construction of that border wall. But in order to be able to do that, he is going to have to win what is going to be a substantial and long-term battle in the courts, as the president himself conceded when he declared the national emergency. He knows that he's going to end up in court immediately, because at its heart, Vuyo, this is not a debate about whether the United States should build a wall along the US border with Mexico or not. This is a debate over just how much authority the President of the United States has to act without the support of Congress. As you know, this is not a dictatorship. This is a constitutional democracy. And under the terms of the American Constitution, the President gets to propose legislation, but it's up to Congress to back it and to fund it. And in this particular area, Congress has decided that he hasn't made the case for a crisis along the US border with Mexico, that he shouldn't get the $5.7 billion that he wants to build the wall, and the President of the United States is saying, in essence, regardless of the constitutional arrangements, I'm going to build the wall anyway. So this is going to be a big test of that Constitution and of the powers that President Trump has assumed with this announcement here today.
Does it mean, Simon, that all other possible avenues have now been exhausted? Which then means that the courts are really the only place where this can be possibly resolved?
Yeah, I mean, look, there is not going to be a vote in Congress that gives him the $5.7 billion that he wants. At the end of negotiations with the Democrats, he was able to walk away with $1.3 billion. That's less money than he could have walked away with last year before he shut the government down for 35 days. Some look at this and say Donald Trump is actually knows that he's going to lose this over the long term, but wants to create an ability to, in 2020, during the next election, say to his supporters, I wanted to build the wall, I was just bedeviled by the Democrats and the judges. And this certainly sets that argument in train, unless he were to win legally. It will go all the way to the US Supreme Court. There is no real way I think it's going to be resolved before the election in November of 2020. But he's also under enormous pressure from his fellow Republicans, from Republican centrists up on Capitol Hill, who believe that he's done the wrong thing here today, that he shouldn't have declared a national emergency, because he is raising questions about his commitment to constitutional democracy. And more importantly for President Trump himself, from his right-wing supporters, who are absolutely furious that the president, absent the national emergency, was about to cave and sign the spending measure that Democrats had agreed with him. So he's had a very rough week, and that's why he has tried to change the conversation here today with this dramatic announcement.
Beyond the politicians, Simon, how is broader America reacting to all of this?
Look, I think the fundamental problem he's got on this issue, Vuyo, is that time and again he has tried to persuade the American public that there is truly a crisis along the US border with Mexico. The statistics don't support that argument. The reporting from the scene doesn't support that argument. And when on numerous occasions he has urged Americans to jam the switchboards up on Capitol Hill and tell their members of Congress to get behind his insistence that this wall needs to be built, there hasn't been much evidence of a groundswell of public support. Indeed, the opinion polls say President Trump was wrong to shut the government down for 35 days over this particular issue. So he says there's a crisis on the border. He says there needs to be a national emergency to deal with it. Very few independent observers looking at the situation reach the same conclusion. His core supporters on the right of the Republican Party, they of course continue to back him in this quest.
Simon Marks, that's where we're going to leave it for this evening. Our U.S. correspondent on U.S. President Donald Trump's latest act, which was to declare a national emergency.